All right, welcome. Whoop, that's not the scene you guys need to be looking at. Just checking out some channel stuff here. There we go. So, welcome everyone to TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. Oh my goodness, I'm tired. I've been working really hard lately.
I expect.
All right, it's just like I'm up, I work for a bunch, and then I sleep, and then I wake up. I work for a bit, and then I go back to sleep. It's rough, but we got an interesting show, I think, for you all today, especially with some of the things I can talk about as far as Treasure Vault is concerned, as well. Just some other interesting things in the space. And also, joke on you, Lintholium, I don't have any nat 20s. You lead the bad luck to me. So
True, honestly.
You can have the nat 1s. I have plenty of those.
Plenty to spare.
But, alright, Alex. So, what have you been up to lately?
Been a fun balance between, like, school and YouTube stuff. Been hopping from, like, quickly reviewing for a big exam I have on Sunday to, reading about Space Wolves and other 40k stuff. It's been just nothing but that.
That's fair. Yo, Keenan. Nice to have you here. Yeah, it's, I have the next artifact archetype. There's 2 artifact archetypes in Treasure Vault. So I have the next video coming out tomorrow. And fortunately, it's not like 5 or 7. I think 7 came out in Dark Archive or something. Because it's, last time when Dark Archive came out, I was so mind-numbingly busy just pumping out videos day after day after day. With the 2 artifact archetypes, I can space them out a little bit, especially because if I release a video and then I do a stream in a day. Oh, okay, cool, Dark Ender. Cool, that's fair.
The delay is better, yeah.
The delay, yeah, I don't know what it is about the YouTube delay. There's nothing I can do, honestly.
It's so weird. You'd think that it'd be, like, the same.
You would think. And there's, like, no settings I can mess with. I've tried. But, yeah, it's just... Because whenever I post something on the same day I do a live stream, for some reason, that video no longer shows up on, like, people's, like, homepage or whatever. It'll be the last thing you did, because the YouTube prioritizes your more recent content over your older content. So if I had to do that many again, I'd probably have to, like, be like, all right, no game this week, guys, and not do, like, our weekly gaming, because otherwise it would bury a video that would do infinitely better than any of our streams do as far as views are concerned.
Which is fair, honestly. I mean, if a video can draw in a bunch of people and also finally tick you over to that 2K spot, like, that's worth postponing a game.
Yeah, well, and actually, speaking on that, holy cow, everyone. The growth on the channel has been nuts. We had 20 subs yesterday, 24 subs, out of nowhere, for no reason. The artifact archetype video I did yesterday didn't even do that well compared to a lot of my recent videos. It's like 7 of 10 or whatever. And we've only had like a handful of days where we've been under 10 subs, and that's been obviously counterbalanced by our 20 plus sub days. So we are looking at, yeah, big crowd, Will. We are looking at hitting 2K by my estimate, at the very least by Sunday. And if not sooner. We'll see how the I'll give you all a sneak peek. The Gelid Shard is the name of the next archetype. Artifact archetype. The Gelid Shard. So we'll see how well that one does. And someone in the Discord the other day was asking about like merch and Patreon and ways they can, support us. Right now, if I do a Patreon, I want to make sure that I have content on the Patreon for the people who support. I have some ideas for what I would like to do that, but I don't want to make a Patreon just for the channel. I want to be able to output just a little bit more to reward the people who have, are willing to help support the channel. And merch is something I'm not even close to thinking about until much, much later. And if I do merch, I want to make sure it's quality merch, not cash grab merch, like lame t-shirts that the print washes off after like 5 times.
Yeah, those are the worst. I have some really great shirt designs, and then like you wash it once, you're like, oh, kind of just
I'm wearing
down
like
$20.
A t-shirt I got at a gym, and the letters are washing off, which is dumb because it's a gym shirt. One of the most washed shirts you should probably own.
Yeah, I have my shirt right now that is like my comfy shirt, since like Thursday is my chill, relaxed day. Don't do anything, just reset. It's a really fun, like, not official t-shirt of just like poking at the Istvan 3 war crimes that were committed in Warhammer. And it's like fading a little bit, but it's very resilient. So now it's just like kind of cracked lettering and like picture, which makes it look cooler, honestly. But I am scared of when this thing actually fades, because I love this shirt. It's the comfiest thing I own.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, definitely. See, the thing is, like, merch has hidden benefits that you don't really think about. No one really sells merch for the... Well, there's easy ways to make it profit, obviously. Limited runs and everything like that, if you have a good deal, can actually be huge. The added benefit is, like, the free advertising your merch brings with it. Because when they wear it anywhere, people see it. It's something that is just like, it's literally free advertising. People are buying advertising space from you and running around and like showing it off to people. So
yeah, there's also just a lot of times for merch stuff, if you're just trying to break into it, you're probably not going to cut a profit. Because the one I think of specifically is like Ricky with merch. The reason, they make some really good money off their merch, but that's a lot of it's because Bricky has a pre-established business relationship with the company they work through, and like has a lot of different merch options for a lot of different things he works on. So he's able to get better deals to actually like continue that business. But if you're just kind of like hopping in the scene for the first time, it's going to be a little harder.
Yeah. So the best way currently that y'all can help support the channel is you can check out the membership button, which there should be one now, on any of the videos or on the channel. Yeah, there's a join button now. And that's the easiest way that y'all can support the channel for right now. That's just for those who want to add to the channel, who watch the videos, yada, yada, yada. I'm not banking on that for any, like, substantial amount of income currently. I'm just more than happy to make this content. Oh, well, there's other people in the Twitter or Twitch side of things as well. Currently, we have 10 viewers over all platforms. We multi-stream. In fact, most people who join us through YouTube end up switching to Twitch. Mostly because the delay is like way less on Twitch for some reason.
Like, as kind of, well, it's, you know, every single streaming site is just has a lot of issues. And like, as shitty as Twitch is, they also have like the best platform when it comes to just chatting with like a live stream in general. The YouTube chat features leave a lot to be desired. The difference is, though, like, YouTube has, you know, monetary incentives, and you can actually make some money off of that.
Yeah,
like a little bit.
I might just rejoin the Twitch Associates program just to do that stuff again. My channel would never have enough people on it for them to be like, hey, you're multi-streaming, don't do that.
Yeah, they're not gonna know or care. The amount of money you'd be taking from Twitch's pocket is, like, negligible.
Right. It's just something that right now streaming is not. I mean, despite being in the top like something percent of streamers with the numbers we get, which is insane to think that when you get like 20 viewers, you're in the top 5% of all streaming. That's just how it is. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but that's where all the other people are, so that was just to answer your question. I'm not telling you to go one way or the other. We do both so people can choose, after all. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, we were the top 1% of all streams on the tabletop games Twitch category last year. We'll probably be that again this year, honestly, because this channel actually does surprisingly really well.
Oh yeah, I think one of the things is, are there any other like, I guess general tabletop or like tabletop streams on Twitch that aren't just live plays? That are like, because I know there's like painting, but like doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. I don't really hang around the category to watch anything.
Yeah, that's why I asked too. I don't use Twitch. I don't like live stream. I switch off like after a few minutes.
Honestly, I only watch anything on Twitch when literally there's nothing on YouTube to watch at the moment. But that's just because I'm like hooked onto my computer all the time, working. Because I might as well have something on while I'm working. And sometimes I just run out of content.
You know,
there's some pretty big live plays on right now, though. There's one that has 329 viewers.
Damn.
And there's a couple other that have 150 and 100.
It just, like, it makes sense if we're, you know, this stream does really well because, I mean, this is easy to, like, hop into and just join a discussion rather than, like, oh, a new live play thing. Well, I gotta catch up first. I can't just hop in, like, in the middle of a live play and, like, really sit down and get invested. I don't know, maybe some people can. I can't, for sure.
And, yeah, I don't know. And the thing is just, like, we're consistent here. We don't have to worry about people's schedules for streaming. So that's probably a reason why our channel does well in the space. And, there's some other factors to it as well. But I was going to say something. I completely lost track. Either way, you know, we multi-stream we used to multi-stream onto Facebook as well. Yeah. And then that did nothing, so it's like, why bother?
I know there are people on Facebook that do watch and enjoy tabletop stuff, but like, you're also going on Facebook. Like, you have like a limited number, or even just like Facebook itself is just kind of ass. I know this because in all of my video analytics, apparently people are really sending my shit around on Facebook and Facebook Messenger.
Weird. Yeah, that's strange.
I have a small group of dedicated fans on Facebook that just keep sending my shit. So I don't know. I know there's also a few Warhammer channels that I see like a smaller size, a little bigger, a little smaller than me, that also do a lot of Facebook content. That Facebook content doesn't do very well.
Yeah, Facebook's a dying platform.
Yeah.
So it's nothing really worth investing in at this time, and the people who run Facebook are just dumb anyway.
Yeah, and all the fucking money that they're losing right now because going all in on a shitty version of VR chat.
Yep. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we have, like, I have nothing as far as news is concerned, but there's definitely some interesting facts going around about the TTRPG space in recent times. There are a ton, like, it's very interesting to be in the TTRPG space on Twitter, because now a lot of games that you never seen anything from them have started chatting like crazy.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, here's like a bunch of people talking about Cypher games. Here's a bunch of people talking about, like Lancer and Iconic, which is Massive Press's other TTRPG. That's their fantasy variant. And a lot of people who are just interested in chatting about other tabletop games, other games kind of coming into this space. It's really hard for indie tabletop to really get a foot in the door most places.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like you're talking out into it. It's worse than being just a normal person on Twitter. Because when you represent like a product of some kind, the only people who are interested in you are people who are interested in whatever it is that you're selling, your game, whatever. When you're just like a normal person and you're just posting memes and chatting, people will just follow you just because they think you're funny.
Yeah.
Or they'll follow you because you followed them, all that kind of stuff. So it's really hard in spaces like Twitter. And Pathfinder recently has been growing massively. The fact that Paizo is now looking at their website to fix it, because my god, is Paizo's website like the worst?
It's yeah.
It's terrible.
The process of buying the Guns and Gears book PDF should not have been as difficult as it was.
So they're looking to rework their whole website, which I think is still something well in the works and is not even going to be anything anytime soon.
Yeah.
But they're sold out of books until late spring. And the Pathfinder 2e Reddit has exploded. And there's so many people on it nowadays. They went from having like slightly over like 50k members to I think they're well over 70k, and that was like in a month.
Whew. That's some rapid shit.
That's a lot of rapid growth, yeah. And a lot of the YouTube side of things, there's been some developments as far as like, all right, so now a lot of the people in the Pathfinder space, like this channel, have gained some growth over recent times. We went from being like 1.5k or something at the beginning of the year to literally now staring down 2k. Yeah, Archives of Nethys had to one. They need to actually ask a bunch of people to donate, which they got a bunch of people to donate, and then they've upgraded the server again. This is actually the second time they've had to upgrade in the last year because of its rapid growth.
Which, like, I can already tell too, because I remember a good while ago, the even Archive of Nethys just struggled to work.
Yeah.
Like, there's times where it just wouldn't load on normal days. I'm happy at the very least that this giant influx is causing Paizo to have their ship be updated. Now it just works more stably in general. So I've had no issues with Archive of Nethys, except that time when the site was being viewed by a lot more people when the OGL stuff hit.
Yeah. And, honestly, like, a lot of people were very unsure. Last week, we had Dave from How It's Played on to chat, which was a great time. Loved it.
Awesome.
A lot of fun. And there's been a lot of skepticism amongst, like, the Pathfinder content creators on whether this boom, like, how long it will last or whatever. And even I'm like, it's gonna start, I think, dying down, especially as the controversy around D&D dies down and people are kind of like going back to that space. But honestly, with the consistency of people like watching videos and trying to get into the space, and YouTubers from D&D bringing people with them over, there's been still very consistent growth, like, in the space in general. So, like, I still think that there's gonna be a healthy amount of converts over the course of this year just trickling out of D&D. Also, right, when was the last D&D book that anyone heard anything, like, about at all?
Yeah, it was really just Tasha, huh?
Tasha's was the biggest one last year. I think
Not
they
just
had...
last year? I thought
I
that was
think
like
so.
2020 or something.
I don't think so. Tasha.
Or at least like 2021.
Cauldron of Everything.
Oh no, November 17th, 2020.
Oh, was it 2 years ago? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
I remember.
Wow.
All I remember is because it was during COVID, like COVID stuff. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, 2 years since the last like book that people gave a shit about. Because I think the rest have just been modules, right?
Yes. A new one literally came out like a week or so ago. Which one was that?
Big?
Also, they would dare release a book at this terrible time.
Well, I mean, I guess they released stuff like Spelljammer or those source books, which were then hit with their own issues. I think that's also the thing of like 5e's releasing books, but like nothing memorable or as major, because Tasha had a lot of shit in it. And it's weird, like, you'd think, oh, hey, these books do really well when we give out, like, a lot of new rules and just new content.
It looks like their last book that came out, unless it's some other thing, came out in December 6th, 2022, and that was their Dragonlance book for that campaign setting.
Yeah. So it's just like, seems like they're making campaign settings and modules. Which, like, I mean, I imagine they're doing well if they keep making them. Though, like, the actual impact in, like, tabletop stuff that, like, Tasha is nowhere near.
It might be a pre-order thing, because on the official site, the last thing they said that came out was the Dragonlance. Keys from the Golden Vault. No, it says you can get it free shipping from Walmart. Huh. There's a digital pre-order. Wait, what? What's going on here?
What is this?
It ships on February 21st. Why the fuck did one of the first things you look at the very top is keys from from Walmart, free shipping.
There's something
Okay, that's the next book
here.
coming out, and it hasn't come out yet. It'll be shipping out later this month. Similar time actually to Treasure Vault, which is interesting actually. Now I'm thinking about it.
Keys from the Golden Vault versus Treasure Vault.
Yeah, that seems very interesting.
I doubt it's the situation, but that sounds like, you know, those movies that are made specifically with a similar enough name to another, so grandparents buy it for their kids.
Maybe. A collection of 13 heist-centric adventures set in the D&D universe that can be played as a standalone session or as part of an episodic campaign. Okay, so it is yet another book that's just more adventure modules.
Yeah.
Which, I'm going to say, no one cares about.
Like,
well, that's not true.
Mine.
There's a lot of people who actually do like them and like collecting them. And they do have some pretty banger adventures.
They do, honestly.
And yeah, it really feels like that. And it's nuts how bad D&D is at literally their job. Right? D&D is out, execs at Wizard of the Coast are like, we need more money. Let's just squeeze money out of everything else and not put any effort into anything.
It's the same deal with Netflix, honestly. Exact same. Because it's like, hey, you know, here we have two options. Either we listen to the industry and actually release physical copies and theater releases of these movies people care about, and, you know, market them more than a day or the day they drop. Or we can make you charge for password sharing. It's the same deal.
Right.
Slightly more work that is different from your business model, or free money button that is then immediately received horribly. Like the Netflix saying, like, we posted it on accident. We're sorry. That wasn't the final draft of that. They oh my god, they actually pulled a Hasbro.
Yeah.
That's the same response as Hasbro. Yeah.
Yeah. And they also walked it back like Hasbro, so, you know.
Yeah, god.
It's just a thing of when you're looking at the space, D&D is just suffering. It has been for a long time. What has been carrying the D&D space is third-party content.
100%.
For everything that people want, like, the reason why it's so weird to people when people come into Pathfinder and start instantly asking about homebrew is because D&D, that is your lifeblood. That's how you survive in the space if you are at all, like, obsessed about the game.
Yeah,
is
you need
third-party
homebrew.
content.
I also will say, I think, to the extent, too, we might be saying the same things, but I'm clarifying, I guess. And third-party content also is just, like, D&D is the one named in shows. It's the thing that gets some video games dropped that are pretty big. It appears in, like, oh yeah, comics and, like, TV shows. Like, it has that, like, staying power to it, where it's just in stuff, like in Stranger Things, Critical Role, Adventures, and all that stuff. Like, that is also, so it's just, like, in people's mind all the time.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where D&D is not going to go away. That's just plain and simple. D&D is still probably going to be the top runner as far as tabletops are concerned. It's just is easy to access. They have way more advertising for it in many mediums. And Dead Phoenix actually, yes, they do actually have multiple teams writing adventures pretty much at all times. That's actually how they release as many books in a year that they do, even though those book releases are all just adventure paths. But
Yeah.
still.
And this is nothing to, like, you know, shit on the quality, because, like, I'll say the idea of an anthology heist thing is significantly more interesting to me than, like, a long, like, Strahd adventure or something. because like the idea of being able to have some really nice like structured one shots is fun to me, and also like out of like the Avernus sort like rulebook. No, the Avernus Adventure Path. That one did rule. That's a good one. And
Yeah,
I've
like
heard nothing but great things about like Icewind Dale and stuff.
they have a lot of things. Again, like I said, their adventure paths are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But that doesn't add to the game. That doesn't
No.
like make the game better.
The most it adds is like adventure specific magic items that a DM can yoink and put in their custom world. Like if anything, like that's the one addition they make to the game. Or maybe some new monsters, I guess.
And Dev Phoenix, I will mention as well, they have teams constantly making adventure paths for Adventurers League as well.
Yeah, that's true.
And Adventure Path, a lot of them are loosely connected because they'll get like a prompt or like a level range to make it on. And you'll get people writing for them all the time. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case with this one. I'm sure it probably will be pretty decent, honestly, given their track record. A lot of these adventure paths, like a lot of their adventure paths are pretty good, but nothing is adding to the game as far as like player side. And for a game, right, where adventure paths are meant to be run over the course of like multiple months, releasing multiple adventure paths a year is kind of silly. Like Pathfinder gets away with it because their adventure paths are coming out sequentially for the same adventure path, because a lot of their adventure paths are like 1 to 20, or at least like 1 to 15. So D&D, again, we've just confirmed 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, or no, 2 years ago and some change.
Yeah, it's still November.
Released their last book that added to the actual like game as far as like new characters, classes, ideas are concerned. And I think this is intentional. I think they saw the third-party space as like, oh man, people are just making classes for us, and we don't even get yelled at for the balancing because that's on them, not us. So let's just make adventure paths to run their characters in nonstop. I think that must have been their idea, because I have no idea how a tabletop company at all could repeatedly not release new books that add any like character stuff.
You know, there's also the little like conspiracy theory, I guess. Maybe part of it is because of something specifically they mentioned in their OGL apology, where they said they wanted to legally get ahead of the fact that like some people, they'll make a thing and then some homebrew dev will be like complaining that they stole their shit,
right?
Try plagiarism and pursue legally. Maybe it's a method of like the cost sunk of like, hey, if we release this book, there's a chance that some schmuck homebrew like creator will sue us and force us into legal battles where we'll lose a good chunk of revenue. So might as well not bother, and because they'll just do it for us. And with the sheer amount of homebrew that 5e has, because by necessity it needs it, like that's more and more common that you'll just accidentally rip somebody off. Like, maybe that's the reason.
Maybe. I mean, I would have to hazard that has to be the case, because
or at least
literally
like part of the reasoning. Because I also think your idea on it too is pretty solid. There's a chance it could just be multiple like compounding reasons that just makes it not worth it.
I have no idea, honestly. Yeah. It's just one of those things of I have no idea how a game like D&D can go so long between releases that give new character options or whatever. Like, that's another thing. If Wizards wanted a print money button, just make more core release books that give more character options. Players buy that up like crazy.
They buy the books and then they buy it on D&D Beyond for their players, or that just have access to it. Like, that's more just general revenue. Because I do like this point. Like, it is true. Like, because I don't I'm not a DM. I don't care about the Pathfinder adventure paths. Also, like Cam doesn't really run a lot of them for us, so it's not something I've ever looked into. But like
Mm-hmm.
whenever a new book comes out, there's always an archetype or two that comes from it, regardless of quality. Like looking at you, Corpse Tender. Like even
Yeah,
though that
Corpse
one's
Tender.
not very great, it's still super fun. I love that archetype, despite the fact it's not very good. Like
It's
there's just
very
an
silly.
objectively better necromancer like archetype standing right next to it, but like Corpse Tender is really fun.
And Dark Iron, to answer your question, Alex kind of said this already. I don't really get the adventure pass a lot of time. I'm really bad with adventure pass. My weakness as a GM is I'm really bad at anything that's pre-written. I work better when I'm just straight improving on the scene. So
I'll say you still did very well with the Rune Lords one, but it felt more like it was your campaign, but with predetermined like story points and like maps rather than like a full U campaign.
I mean, to be fair, I've also had tons of practice with that one because I failed to run it all the way through 4 times.
Yeah, I would love to complete it, but that's also opening up for the curse again.
I mean, I think I'll run it if they release a 2E version.
Yeah, I hope they do, because it's really cool. I really like the plot of it.
I think it's really good.
It's well made.
I could probably run it now, though, knowing what I know. I'd not have to worry about the balance and everything.
Yeah, I remember that was the problem with like, because it was like when you're first getting into DMing Pathfinder.
Yeah, it was. And so it was like, how the heck do I have this character here? Because like some of the enemies are just straight up player characters, essentially.
Yeah.
With like multi-class and everything. It's like, how do I do that? Now I can be like, oh, okay. Now I generally know how I want to throw this in. So, and I'm so much more comfortable with the numbers now that I could probably run it. But honestly, even right now with everything that we're doing, like with running Lancer and looking to run Vampire in the future and getting into Foundry, which has also been a lot of homework on my end.
A lot of work, but a lot of work I think is paying off because the games feel so much more dynamic in Foundry. It also just works for Lancer as like a war game. Because it's so much more fun to, instead of being like, I click this part of my sheet, instead of like, I target such and such, I fire, a cool animation plays.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so fun.
So, you know, there's a lot that goes into what we're doing here. So Adventure Paths are just not high on the list of anything I look into. Though I do keep an eye out for them. I'm always watching whenever they get updated on Archive and Ethos, if there's any archetypes that I need to do that have like predated anything I've currently done.
More archetypes to toss onto the pile.
Yeah.
The ever-growing pile.
The ever-growing pile. Oh, goodness. Again, one of the reasons why I'm glad this last book didn't introduce more than like a couple, because when a new book comes out that introduces like a bunch of archetypes, I just have to do it all at once. For my sanity, I have to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it makes my job of doing all the archetypes even longer. We're almost done with F. So we're almost done with the beginning of the alphabet.
Hey.
We got 2 more in F, and then another tier list update. And then we are moving on to like 8 or G through I think. Because there's not a lot of like H's. Or no, there's a lot of H. No, actually there's a ton of H's, that's right. So it's going to be G and H, and then it's like I through L or something like that.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't know though, right? Like, I understand that premise, but that's inexcusable for multiple years of no core book releases. Like, keep it short and simple is, I think, a good mentality, but the problem is their game is so underbaked that it just is it's going to be complicated because balancing is unheard of in the game. Like Monster CR does nothing, means nothing.
Also, how many DMs actually understand how CR works? Also because it doesn't really work.
Yeah. So if any of them were actually paying attention to the game in the space right now, I feel like that would be the thing. And the thing is, right, you can still release classes and like be more moderate with it. I mean, technically D&D did release the Artificer officially.
That's true.
So it's not...
That was just in a campaign book, right? Then they put in Tasha.
I don't even know. I know like officially released in Tasha.
Yeah.
I'm not
'Cause I remember
sure.
I had a friend who ran stuff for us, and he had the campaign book, and I remember just that was part of it. Yeah, Eberron, that's it. And then eventually got in Tasha, so it just made it better because he had every book, regardless of running. He was also one of those people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, again, if you collect books, that's fine.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's essentially what D&D is living on. But
exactly.
When it's Adventure Paths, players do not have a reason to buy Adventure Path books. So that's why when they release that statistic that like GMs are buying most of the books and are their predominant book sales, it's like, well, yes, because they're buying Adventure Paths.
Yeah,
Players shouldn't be buying Adventure Paths.
Yeah, I'll buy the Adventure Path and spoil myself on what the DM's making. That sounds like a great idea.
And I mean, again, core books don't even need class releases. Like Treasure Vault has no classes, has archetypes, sure, but no classes at all. And you can have like a much more spaced out, like, okay, we're introducing this concept to the game and we'll add a class to it or something like that. Like, you don't need the bazillion classes that 3.5 or Pathfinder 1E had. I feel like it muddles things and it does make too much for new players to kind of get into. But then again, like, right, so let me preface everything. What do we know? We don't run a multi-billion-dollar company. We don't know the numbers. Maybe these things are profitable, you know? I have no idea. All I know is that whenever a Pathfinder... I disagree. Give me all the classes. Whenever, like, a book for Pathfinder comes out, if it's an adventure path, I'm not likely to get it. If it's a core book, I'm infinitely more likely to pick it up. Even if I wasn't doing this as for a living, right? I would still be more likely to pick it up because I was even before this. So it's something that at its core level, I don't know how D&D really expects to continue to sell books to players when so many of them are straight up just adventure paths that most of your player base wouldn't be buying because that's for the GM, so the GM can run them.
Yeah. So
it just mind-blowing. Pathfinder at minimum comes out with 2 core books a year, and oftentimes comes out with more than that, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love how much they release. And then at least when they do release, it feels like at least every book that we've really covered and talked about, it's like every time it feels like they one up the one before.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that one, because the Book of the Dead was an okay book. Was interesting. It was not very exciting.
Nah. just at least remember most of the player facing content, or a lot of it was just like, I adore this. This is so cool. Granted, still my favorite is Guns and Gears. That's
Guns N' Gears
my
is
favorite
really
book.
good.
It's so great. They added a lot of cool stuff. The vehicles too. They added awesome.
Yeah. It's where the firework technician came out of.
Yeah.
So, there's they got a lot of stuff. Rage of Elements is going to be another huge book. And not only that, but hopefully Rage of Elements adds more elemental spells. They added a bunch of elemental spells in Secrets of Magic. And there's still so many elements that just don't have enough spells in them to make a pure caster of that variety.
Yeah.
So I hope they add a lot more. I'm sure they will. It'd be very strange if they didn't. But I guess to get back on subject after everything. So the TTRPG space in general, I think, is experiencing a level of interest. And I think because I've heard countless stories at this point of people who tried Pathfinder after being very vehement about not doing Pathfinder because it's more complex. They like D&D. It's their comfort game. They try it and instantly like it and want to play more of it. We actually had this conversation last year at some point of like why people just keep playing D&D and won't convert away from it. And it's the idea that like people like they don't like change or whatever. I just like I was like I disagree. It's just people. The thought of changing is more exhausting than the actual change itself.
Yeah. Naturally, people are just anything new they shy away from, because like it's still like whenever I think of like the general tabletop audience, there's a few tables I've been at in particular that are like, oh my god, this is so like different from what we have here, what we ran. Where it's like the idea of me being like, hey guys, let's try a different game. Pathfinder's so good for this region. They're like, no, that sounds like a lot of work, and I don't want to do that because 5e is a lot of work and brain power for me to play. And I'm looking over there like, how?
Yeah.
What's 5e like that much brain power? It's just the idea of being like new thing is very tough for some people.
But with the whole WotC thing and people like just being like, no, let's look into other games. Fuck WotC. Like Spite is the best way to get people to try
Honestly.
something new.
Spite is the biggest motivator. That was the problem. I didn't convince them to hate Wizards of the Coast like on a bare level. Yeah. That's where I fucked up as a friend trying to get people into Pathfinder.
Exactly. You have to manipulate people through emotional impulsive choices.
Exactly.
But like I think now Pandora's box has been opened. I think WotC fucked up, and now there's a lot of YouTube channels that have now started doing some outreach, looking into like Pathfinder and everything. Dungeon Deep Dive D4 is a channel that recently started making some Pathfinder content, and they were a big channel compared to the Pathfinder scene of like 74K or something like that.
Oh shit, yeah.
Pack Tactics has also been doing some stuff here and there. And what is Pack Tactics up to at this point?
You know, I don't think I've ever heard of them.
They're 83K currently. And he's been doing like how to make Pathfinder characters or whatever. Man, there's this one guy, I always forget his name. He's like, it's like the something DM or whatever. He just made a bunch of shorts about making broken characters in power gaming and in D&D. And he got really big, and he might be doing some Pathfinder stuff, who knows. So in the Pathfinder space, there's also just tons of channels who are converting, and with that, they're bringing over amounts of their audience with them. And this is, I think, the thing that WotC really messed up on, is they didn't anticipate the influencers, you know. The influencers kind of shitting on all their plans or whatever, I think really moves the space in a lot of ways. And if it wasn't for YouTube, most people would not have known about the OGL stuff.
Yeah.
Because as much as Twitter is really prevalent, not a lot of people who aren't like super into the space are in the Twitter tabletop space.
I mean, the amount of people that just don't use Twitter in general, like.
Twitter's pretty huge.
Yeah,
Twitter's got millions of users.
Yeah, and then there's not like, it's not a 1-to-1 crossover. Even then, like that's true. Like the crossover of like following somebody on YouTube and then following someone on their social media, like it's different, and there's just different levels. Twitter's always much lower, because some people also just might have a Twitter account but then just don't use it, or they just look at one thing, like animal pictures or something.
Yeah, so you know, all the videos coming out on the OGL on YouTube really showed a lot of people what was going on. Those same people who are watching these very popular, you know, channels are making over. Now, none of the really big channels on the D&D side have been making any moves to convert. I think they just have too much to lose in that respect, which is understandable for sure. But a lot of the like bottom rung of the big tier, I guess, because once you get to like 100K, right, you're like a channel on YouTube. People pay attention to you when you have 100K.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of YouTubers in that general like nebula who are going over to Pathfinder, or at least constantly adding more Pathfinder to their content menu. And so I do think it's a lot of that is going to bring over new faces constantly. And I think it's this paradigm that once enough people invest in Pathfinder, that making Pathfinder videos becomes more profitable in a sense. People are going to start making that shift over, because why on earth would you not shift your content over, even if it's not as good, to a game that you just like better?
Yeah.
Because also a lot of these people were like, man, I've been trying Pathfinder and it's really good.
It keeps happening. And I do hope that happens one day, where there can just be enough that Pathfinder has a bigger stay on YouTube, is synonymous to D&D as D&D as just tabletop. I hope one day. Because if like big names, if Critical Role switched to Pathfinder, if Joe Cat did Crap Guide to Pathfinder, like all that stuff, that's a different game we're playing then.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, there's just a lot when it comes to the future of like Pathfinder, and I think other tabletops in general, that we're in a kind of ambiguous time, amorphous time, where we don't really know how the scene is going to shift, because a lot of people, when after the OGL business, a lot of people have just gone back to D&D and are continuing on their D&D lives, which is fair. They love the game. There's no reason why they shouldn't go back to it and play it. If WotC messes up again, which honestly, big companies, when they make a bad mistake, more often than not, will be making other similar mistakes in the near future.
They're probably going to sneakily try this again.
They'll sneakily try it again, or they'll do something but lower, like, okay, we're not going to up D&D Beyond to 30 a month, but we will up it to 15 or something like that.
Yeah.
I actually don't even know how much D&D Beyond is a month.
I don't know.
But you get the gist. It's like, we'll do a little bit more. And it might just be more pressure that forces people out of the space. There's a lot of opportunity for Pathfinder and Paizo to really like start, because people who are not in the Paizo space might not have noticed, but Paizo's been pushing a lot more content on Twitter lately as well.
Yeah.
Pushing people's videos, trying to get more people in the space. And there's been a variety of Ginny V or Ginny D.
Yeah, I keep seeing her pop up on Twitter.
She's also been kind of touching base on Pathfinder a little bit as well. I know she talked on Roll for Combat, I think, not too long ago. Yeah, so it's something that I feel like there can be a big shift if content creators start pushing for that. So it really depends on how profitable it is for content creators to do so. It really depends on how much the content creators like will do so just out of spite for everything that WotC's done. And there also are just a bunch of players who've just been opened up to the tabletop scene in general and are looking at other games for the first time in their tabletop careers, and they're like, oh my god, look at all these amazing tabletop games out here. I never knew. It was just kind of like D&D and nothing else looked interesting. Because now their eyes have finally been opened. So
it's just, there are options. Because I remember, it's always fun when we talk about this, because I also remember a long time ago when I was first getting into D&D, I would look at like D&D stuff in Barnes & Noble with my friends, and they'd be like, oh yeah, then there's Pathfinder, and so we'd be like, oh, what's Pathfinder? It's like, oh, it's like D&D, but really complicated and boring. That was just like, from what I've heard, like natural, like off rip. Now I'm like, damn, dumb that I said that. There's a lot of really cool other options out there. Because like I see all these other tabletop systems, like boring. Where's the 5e stuff? More of that, please. And yeah. It's like I've never been so separate from my younger self.
And it's something that if you're a tabletop veteran like myself who's been doing it for so long, and who I didn't even want to play D&D for the longest time. I looked at D&D and I'm like, it's that tabletop. Because it had like a specific crowd at the time, and the game was very like orientated towards power gaming and dungeon crawling and everything like that. Like when people look at the grognards and are like, man, how like I hate how they look at the game. It's like, that's just what it was back in the day, you know.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a big narrative scene or more open space scene really. So I was like, let me look at other games, and I got into the White Wolf games, and I got a lot of White Wolf games, you know. I got all of them for the prior edition, not I think the most current edition of most of them I don't have the books for anymore, but I do have all the older ones, and I ran Scion, and I think Scion is now a new edition as well. Scion's a really good game. Then I ran into Anima Beyond Fantasy, and man, that was a good game. But I have learned after playing Pathfinder that it is a terrible game, because I had to make up. Like everyone's like, but your games are so good. It's like, yes,
they are.
You know how much I had to burn myself out to make Anima good?
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Anima's still great.
So, you know, and even now, like I discovered Lancer just last year, and it's been out for several years before then. So there's still games out there that are still amazing that I absolutely will love once we get into it. I know Alex has been looking into Delta Green a bit.
Delta Greens seems pretty dope so far. I still got to listen through that live play. It's still open on my tabs. I was gonna listen to it tonight actually, because I finally have time to sit down and enjoy myself after I get a little bit of work done because I have to write an extra script this week.
I have to edit a video for tomorrow.
Yeah. I have whenever I have like a thing I gotta do, like later, what I usually do is I record 2 videos every Monday. I just toss in a third, usually shorter. Like, hey, here's some like 8-minute video to release when I'm out of town. So that way it's pre-edited and set to go out, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Gives me some breathing room. So I have to do that again this week, and then next month as well.
I had a bunch of stuff I was getting ready, and then I got dropped Treasure Vault in the middle of it,
Yeah.
so I had to emergency shift my priorities.
Exactly. It's hard for me to do that right now since I'm not covering competitive stuff, or like, because there's major competitive news going around 40K.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, 10th edition leaks, which honestly, Warhammer leaks are usually correct.
Right.
I'm really burned by Nintendo leaks being wrong 24/7, but like, there are so many. Like, they keep trying to crack down on leaks in their company, but they just can't. And there are some good parts and some bad parts I keep hearing. Looks like the game's going to go a lot faster and require people to have less models on the table, which I think could be net goods. And then also the new season came out, which has some really interesting new additions to the game. But I'm not trying to teach you how to play the game. So I'm just trying to get you a reason to maybe pick up a codex or start reading into your army.
Fair.
That's my job. Yeah, will be announced for Smash any day now. We're just waiting.
Yeah.
The costumes don't deconfirm characters. Jesus. I do wish there was more Smash stuff. I miss playing Smash all the time.
Yeah. I wasn't that into it, but I think I'd love Smash if I played it more.
It's the most accessible fighting game, honestly. And like that, and at least esports wise, Melee is a beautiful game to watch played. It is one of the most hype things I've ever watched.
That's fair.
I don't have Switch Online, and I'm not gonna buy it.
That's fair.
I don't.
So yeah, I
use
mean,
Nintendo stuff.
As far as like tabletop in general, I have actual proof on my channel that people are getting invested in the scene.
Yeah.
Know? Because the most, like, if I look at my last 48 hours of videos that people have been watching, almost all of them, actually, I think pretty much all of them are let's see, archetype, class build, class review, class build, class review, class build, top 5, tier list, class build, or class review, and weapon tier list. They're all videos on the all the ones except for my new videos, which are archetypes, are class-based, looking into builds, looking into what classes are good or not. My monk video has actually been growing ridiculously fast recently. And my witch video has also been growing ridiculously fast recently, and I think that's because of all the warlock converts.
Yeah, those like I know I'll start seeing it on my own eventually, but like they're perfect, just you made them once a long ass time ago, and they're just gonna consistently pull numbers.
Yeah.
Just consistent.
Oh, I was wondering what happens. Why did my... That's so bizarre. That shouldn't... My music changed. It was not done.
Strange.
That's
You know,
very strange.
I also, man, brought up in the chat. It's not related to table talk, but you know what I fucking miss? I miss, video game rumors and secrets that were just kids fucking lying.
Yeah.
I miss that. Like, that was so fun. Of like, hey, did you know you can unlock Toad in Smash Bros. If you do this? Like, I miss that. And then, like, those moments where it turned out it was correct. Like, the myth of, like, hey, did you know in Melee you can play as Master Hand? And you're like, no, you can't. Like, yeah, I saw it on a website, GeoCities. Like, do this. You're like, oh, I'm playing as Master Hand. Or like
Yep.
those moments where you just didn't have the internet and people didn't data mine, so like you just didn't know what characters were in a game. Because like that was my brother and I playing Brawl and Melee, where we accidentally unlocked like Mewtwo and Sonic and shit in like Brawl. Like we got Mewtwo, which I think the requirement was like 24 hours in the Smash like game mode. We got that legitimately because of how much we played. And when we got Mewtwo, we popped the fuck off because we didn't know Mewtwo was in the game.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It's one of the tragic things about data mining.
Yeah.
It's data mining removes a lot of the mystery in gaming.
I love and hate it.
There are ways that people can hide stuff in the content that makes it very hard to access.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's why there's still secrets in games coming out nowadays. But data mining in general, I think, has undermined the discovery aspect of a lot of gaming. And it's just something that will never go away.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. It's like AI art. Once it's been opened, the box
Never
cannot be
closed.
closed.
It's, yeah, God. Because, like, it's such a hard thing. Because, like, I always am like, you know what? I want to be blind on this thing. I don't want to know. I just want to play the game, find all the secrets. And then, like, the problem is I am fascinated by what makes a game work, like the things game devs have to do, especially if it's indie games. Like, I love that stuff. And so then in following a lot of game dev like Twitter, I then see how the sausage is made for all these games, and they're like, oh, we discovered this and this. And it's like, oh, okay. Or like, hey, we can officially deconfirm this really cool rumor and theory because there's nothing relating to this part of the game. We're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. It's sad. You know what? I'll give my greatest gaslighting in gaming.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's probably not as exciting for you, but in Monster Hunter World, there was the release of Devil Joe, which is this big angry like T-Rex looking dinosaur
Named Devil Joe.
Devil Joe.
Okay.
And the pickle, yes, the pickle. Everyone calls him because he's big green and his tail's like really fat and kind of looks like a pickle. And the biggest gaslighting in all of gaming is Devil Joe's story is that its metabolism is so rampant. It goes into a ecosystem and just eats everything.
Huh.
It's so ravenously hungry, it destroys ecosystems. And they're in Monster Hunter, for most monsters, or at least a good number of them, you can cut off their tail. So the rumor started that if you cut Devil Joe's tail off, he'll run over and eat the tail.
I googled Devil Joe and immediately eating tail was like the second one.
Yeah. And to this day, half the fan base still believes Devil Joe will eat its tail.
Yeah.
It is not true, but
God.
countless videos have come out about it.
I love that. That brings me back to the days. However, there's the really annoying end of it, and I wonder if you've seen these. The Grand Theft Auto 5 content that is just fucking lying about things that are in the game.
Yeah.
That annoys me because it's like there's no art in this. You're doing this to trick children for views and money. You're not doing it for the love of the game. You're not lying to someone that you found out how to play as Team Rocket in Pokemon, or telling your friend that like you saw Herobrine in your Minecraft world last night. Like, there's no art there. You're just trying to make money.
So, data mining ruins games. I think if data mining ended, it would only do good for gaming.
Yeah, but I
'Cause it
also
would-
love to see it.
Well, it would
Fascinating.
also, without data mining, there might be some secrets that we would never discover.
That's true. There's some that are just hidden in really stupid ways, so it's like, who's ever gonna discover this? Like, legitimately. Yeah, I love that one. I have
the
that's
train
great.
the code that lets you catch trainer Pokemon. Yeah.
Yeah, I played through Gen 4 like that with the black ball. I think it was in like one of the movies or something. But yeah, I stole all of Cynthia's Pokemon. And I had her team. Man,
It's
it's the thing that's so sad, because on the other hand, there's a video on YouTube I fucking love, where it's this guy who fully decompiled the first Five Nights at Freddy's game. It goes in depth of how everything works in the game, and that's so interesting. That's directly the thing that like I don't like. Like, I don't like data mining, that it ruins the fun and mystique of things. But on the other hand, seeing how the weird ways a lot of things just has to function for coding and game design is so interesting.
Yeah, and you know, there's varieties. There's also like leaks. Like game leaks are devastating for content creators and streamers, because if you're forming a relationship with said company, you have to monitor your chat like a hawk to make sure no one is talking about leaked content, so you're not propagating leaked content unknowingly. And there's also a lot of people who like finding out something in a game who could have guessed. You know, people who want, it's like Monster Hunter games are the worst when it comes to that, because there's a lot of people who jump into the game and like, okay, I don't want to know anything. I just want to see what monsters release as I find them in the game, because that's the fun of it. You never know. And leakers come in and ruin it and like just show the hand, and it's like, oh, well, now I know all the monsters in the game. Like the discovery part of the game is ruined for me now. And content creators, they have this big kind of like double-edged sword in their hands. Do I talk about leaked content because it gets views 100% of the time? Or do I abstain from it to make the game more fun for me and not to ruin my relationship with the company that I'm making content for? And the possibility of getting my channel taken down.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's only a single thing that is leaks are good for like the general community, and that's Warhammer, because the company just won't fucking tell us anything they're working on. So like we just don't know until it's like a week or so until it's going to come out. So there's no prepping that we can do. And
it's just different as well.
Yeah, it's like a different medium.
There's no discovery in wargaming. It's just knowing whether your army is gonna suck ass in the next season or not. So
yeah, the most it ruins is like the trailers during some of the giant opens, where like they say, where they have like the teasers for a new model or something, where like, holy shit, they're bringing back such and such, like Angron's back. Like, it ruins that. But that aspect, but it's also fucking necessary. Yeah, the OGL leak's a very good leak. That was just good.
Well, OGL leak's a different kind of leak than what we're talking about. We're talking about leaks for gaming, and like that is about gaming content specifically. Whistleblower content and making sure we're holding companies accountable is necessary. 100%. Shrinkage, if it wasn't for the fanatical group of shrinkage monitoring people out there who are like holding companies accountable for the shrinkage they perform, a lot of food we'd be buying now would be far less for far more.
Yeah.
There's it's ridiculous how shitty companies can be when it comes to even stuff like food. Like, food is just one of those things. It's like there should be better. Food should be more monitored, but we're in a free market, and so free markets, of course, are very hard to manage in any reasonable sense.
They want that moolah.
But the thing is, right, I'll just say, so without getting too much into it, free markets are good in concept when competition is prevalent, but with many companies going out and buying like absurd amounts of buying other companies, buying land, buying resources or whatever, free market no longer makes sense and only just benefits the people who manage to squeeze out at the top. Shrinkage only happens because there's no competition to keep it in check.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to gaming. Don't get me on politics. I'll just talk endlessly. Yeah, the OGL leak was very important, and companies need to be accounted for. Even Paizo. Paizo's treatment of their writers and everything spawns the writers union for Paizo and has been over a good thing. And Paizo, not being the shit company that it is, has gone out and openly advocated for its union. There's so many companies out there that are so anti-union that training is mandatory to include anti-union propaganda.
I remember hearing a lot of that in work. Like it's a lot of like, oh, they're just gonna take your money.
Well,
and see, they're gonna do all this, and they're not gonna do anything for you.
The thing is, right, that can be the case though. Because just because a union has your money doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily be able to push stuff for you. So there are some unions that are just not as good as others. And there's also cases of unions like just taking the money and doing nothing. So you have to walk into most situations like that with the idea that you have to find the content yourself, you know. Nothing is objectively good or bad in this world. Everything's just shades of gray, and you just gotta find things that are as close to white as possible. Because rarely are things incorruptible or, like, can't become corrupted either.
Yeah. Also, like, I've heard critiques against unions like that in general. You know, companies should just have unions. Because even if a company starts with the most, like, absolute nicest, perfect intentions, you still need a group that can keep the higher-ups accountable and give the employee perspective, because that it will just be lost on management. There's only, like, a very few places out there that can give that, like, perspective. Like, it's the one, like Costco in general, a pretty good company to work for everything I hear. You're treated incredibly well. One of the reasons is because managers like are required to have worked the very like basic menial labor. Even if you enter as like a high paying like position, you still for a good chunk have to do like unloading trucks, stocking merchandise, stuff like that. To give the perspective of like the work of the people below you so you know to treat them right.
Right. And I agree with the statement in general. I'm just saying that you need to be able to come into things and do the research yourself.
Yeah.
Look into whether your union is actually doing anything or not. Because, like I said, there are just unions out there that just don't do anything. They don't push that hard, or the people who are running the union are more just siphoning funds off the union anyway, not using that to push content or push things. The thing is, right, technically you can have multiple unions for the same thing. There's no law against that. It does divide power, but I mean, if your money's not going anywhere good, you might as well put it to something that would work. So like I said, I'm not saying don't do unions. I'm saying go in, do the research, and fight for, you know, what you think you should do with your wages. And most of the time, make sure that you are also respecting your work, because don't let your companies mistreat you. We live in an age where you don't have to put up with that. Friendlier union leadership is with management, the worse the union gets, in my experience. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and
They're all
again,
buddy. They're less likely to actually push for any major change, beneficial stuff, because they don't want to get on the bad side of their friends.
yeah. So, go in objectively, look at what's going on. It's like contracts. Read your contracts. Always make sure that you understand the work you're signing up for. And the worst thing you can do for a company, like recently, right? My buddy had a major walkout at his business, and now the business is suffering because of it. The most powerful thing you can do.
You cut out on Discord.
Did I?
Yeah.
Am I still
The
here?
most powerful thing you can do. Yep. There you go.
Oh, weird.
I know what you said, but yeah.
The most powerful. What I say now? I read a message and my brain is just like.
Or it's like the most powerful thing you can do is just walk away, quit.
Oh yeah, the most powerful thing you can do is like use your employment for power, because it's the thing that's changed companies, walkouts, strikes, all that kind of stuff as well. And it sucks that in this case it was a small business, because it might just be the death of a really cool bar. But you can't have management treating people shitty no matter what the size of your business is. So in any regard, let's go back to the tabletop.
Can't wait for this to get dug up and then criticized for us becoming
Yes.
woke Marxists.
People who clip part of what I say, and they're just like, see, he doesn't want unions.
Or specifically the people who hate unions, pro big business and billionaires doing everything they want. You're like, oh, when did Bad Luck Gamer turn to a commie?
Yeah, when do you turn woke? But when it comes to tabletop, we'll see how the future turns out. Wizards of the Coast, I don't feel like is just gonna let D&D continuously make no money, or at least not enough money for them. With their nuanced analysis, yeah. Because the thing is, right, as good as D&D has been, Magic the Gathering outsells it by like leaps and bounds. It's not even close.
Yeah, God.
And the thing is, with the movie coming out and with the huge player base with Critical Role and their massive success, it would be dumb if Hasbro let D&D not flourish. Unfortunately, all the people making money don't know how to make actually good game content. So instead, they do what they do, which is buy out market and saturate with ads, because that's the quickest way to make a bunch of money really fast and get some good head pats from the CEO. And it doesn't do, it's like Blizzard Gaming. It's like so you can see, and you see this in like the video game space all the time, is there's companies out there that were founded on making great games and suddenly are just stupid, doing things that you're like, how are you thinking that this is any good idea? Why do you think this is gonna make your game better? And it crashes their games. and then they have to spend a lot of time in development walking things back, you know?
Yeah, like this, the market analysis says this is a good idea, but this doesn't implement well into the game at all. We'll still do it.
Yeah.
It's your fault, Dow's, the game didn't sell well because of these issues that we added. Or the other annoying thing is, it's something I brought up in like our personal Discord earlier, because it's fucking mind blowing. Just that there are sometimes companies and game companies have executives and people who just do not fucking understand the thing that their company works on. They have no connection to it. They're a bunch of old ass boomers who just like know money is good. And it's the Matt Colville made a video on when he worked in the Star Trek tabletop system, and the amount of times he and his team had to fight with the heads of like the whoever they had to contact to do Star Trek things, where they were saying things like, "Hey, this thing in your book, we don't like it because there's no fat Starfleet members. No one in Starfleet's ugly. It's a utopia." Or asking him, why do we have to waste all this time and like have a character creator? Why can't we just make the characters for the players? He's like, that's not a tabletop system. Yeah, but what if they make something we don't like? Like the concern of, oh, but you know, the players will make something bad for our IP in the privacy of their homes. That'll hurt our brand recognition. That's all they care about. They care about nickel and diming you and like keeping the numbers up. Like they don't care about any actual like the consumers. Like at that level, it's just always what it is. Like, oh, markets do this. This did well this area. We can't trust the consumers. They don't know what they're doing. It's a whole fucking battle. It's like if 5e could, I feel like they would probably do that. Because that's the bigwigs at Hasbro. That's what they want to do.
And a lot of it is just for people who make money. They know that all they need to do is squeeze it out and then dump it. It happens all the time. Yeah. I mean, how do you fuck up something like Halo, right? God, such a beloved series, and just its constant mismanagement is embarrassing.
It's really fucking sad.
And then if you're a World of Warcraft player, I've been hearing that World of Warcraft has been doing dumb things again after getting a bunch of players back on for Dragonflight.
Are they back on that? Are they back on NFTs?
Ugh. NFTs. Well, you know, honestly, at this point, if you do NFT stuff, it's your fault. Everyone should know how toxic that space is by now.
It's weird. It's almost like a business predicated on scamming people to make a profit. It turns out it just doesn't work well and people don't like it.
Yeah.
Wild. The only way to make money in a crypto space is by getting idiots to make you money. By making the things you have worth more. I know Square Enix went really deep into it. And they doubled down on it. Like,
I don't know,
it's
actually.
A dumb concept. I remember reading a thing that where their statement was like, we understand the issues, but we think we're doing something different. It's like, okay, you're not. It's just dumb. It's also a thing I think most players don't care about, and all the implements that they want to make with NFTs, like, oh, we want to make an NFT game. They're all dog shit ideas.
Gamers don't get NFTs.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything on it. So
it's the execs of Square Enix that are really pushing for it.
Yeah. But, you know, and the thing is, right, this is the difference between game companies that, like, really understand the players or at least try to do the best gaming they can versus ones that don't. Because the growth is always very different. Paizo has been slowly growing ever since it came out. It's been pushing it. It had better numbers during 4E and then kind of fell behind when 5E came out. And now it's just slowly gaining again. It's just this little engine that could, you know. It's got very consistent growth. And the thing is, companies like that only benefit when big companies fuck up.
Yeah.
And
move right in and be like, Want a company that doesn't fuck up like they did? Check us out.
Yeah. And the thing is that despite that, right, despite how good Paizo has shown themselves to be, they'll still never be as big as D&D. So who's the one who's right and who's the one who's wrong? Yeah. And it's a question to ask. Not every IP has that same benefit. Like Halo, as I just mentioned before, has been just stun-locked in a downward spiral of like, oh, if something comes out, a bunch of people buy it, and then they fuck up and do nothing with it, and then it goes back down again over and over and over.
There are very few really long-running series that I can point to and be like, this has been consistent or been constantly getting better as the company's made more money. Like, I think genuinely the one series I can point to is the Yakuza franchise. There has been like one mistake on game that they've ever made, and it was a on-rail shooter like spin-off game that was just like a thing they threw out on the PS3. It wasn't even like a major investment. Like, they're the only one that's like keeping their quality that I can at least point to right away. There are definitely others, but like that's the first.
I mean, Final Fantasy XIV is another example of a game that was utter garbage and then picked up by a great producer. Not producer, whatever Yoshi P's position is. I actually don't remember at the moment. And has made the game one of the top MMOs, in the world, constantly competing with World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And it's because Yoshi P enjoys gaming. He really likes games. The companies that run like the Dark Souls series, FromSoft, there you go.
Yeah, that's another one.
Who, very consistently have been pushing out good games because they enjoy games. Director? Yeah, director. I think. Head director. In any regard, it's like you can see them everywhere, but the thing is, in the end, they still don't do as good as the highest grossing, no matter what. But they do consistently good, and they generate a lot of goodwill. And so it's like, does it pay off to have very consistent like content and quality versus scummy marketing?
I wonder, because I feel like through some parts, it feels like the gaming market is getting a little better with it. I think it's twisting into the form of right now more quality content is what's making more money, rather than like what it used to be years ago of the, throwing as many microtransactions as we possibly can. That's falling a little bit down. Because which also, as I'm saying this, could be a giant cope on my end in my absolute hope that Assassin's Creed franchise has finally seen their mistakes of their past 3 video games and understands that like the original stuff is really strong. Kinda just go back to that gameplay. It's super fun. And because they're gonna make a new one that's like old style Assassin's Creed, I'm like, please be good. It hopefully we might be in an era of like listening to your community, making quality remakes that aren't like shitty, toxic, like trash you can just throw out. Like the Dead Space remake has been absolutely like killing it because it fucking rules. It's a great remake.
Yeah,
and like the remake of Metroid Prime, we just got announced yesterday. That one also looks hype. I've never played Metroid Prime. I'd like to.
Yeah, I've been hearing some stuff about that. I don't know. I've been so busy lately that it's been hard to keep track.
Yeah, they're dropping a full visual remaster with fixed controls for dual stick. Like instead it's just like GameCube controller. I hear nothing but good things about Metroid Prime, so I'd like to play
it. So it's like, and I agree. I think I genuinely do think that the video game space has been getting marginally better. There's still some instances of like the Diablo Immortal situation.
Yeah, God.
And again,
Blizzard being Blizzard.
Like most things that Blizzard touches just turns to shit.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of stuff with Overwatch that consistently is questionable. Valorant has been having some issues lately as well. So companies are still making mistakes out there, but I do feel like gaming has gotten to the point where with like Steam and like its various indie games that are coming out that are really, really good, and with the companies out there who are pushing really good games like FromSoft and some others, there's more good games that are doing good than there are bad games that are doing good. So I do genuinely think that gaming is making trends in the right direction. But again, that's mostly due to just the sheer amount of competition out there. There's no players don't have a good reason to get bad games.
Yeah, like the only few that I can point at that are still doing that are like the Madden, FIFA series, like sports games, COD, like Battle Royale. They can keep pumping it out because they have a player base that just plays those and like nothing else. Because I see constant like, oh, this new FIFA sucks, and then they have like hundreds of hours still in it. They're still playing it, buying stuff, but they talk about how like, oh, it's really dropped off. But they're not going to stop buying FIFA because that's all they play. There's like no other games that they enjoy. The general like rest of like the community is like, well, these games suck and they're just cash-ins. I'm just not going to buy them. I hope too, because I think the indie market's also pushing AAA devs to finally do that. Because the indie market, holy fuck, especially the past few years, has gotten ridiculously good. Like some of the best games I've played have been indie studios. I'm looking at you mainly, New Blood. I love every game they put out.
Yeah, I mean, I love most of FromSoft's games, so.
Oh yeah, I love FromSoft, and it's just like I think that finally it's kind of like the facts are there. There's some evidence to be optimistic about the future of just game releases being more quality.
Yeah,
We're gonna get better remakes, more care put into it for a bit, and hopefully it doesn't shift.
Well, everything's cyclical. It just kind of depends on like advancements in technology, because if VR ever becomes like really, really good, we're gonna see a VR hike of like amazing content, and then we're gonna see a hike of VR exploitive material,
And
then hopefully, yeah, and then eventually, hopefully, again, we'll cycle back when indie becomes stronger, and that's what I feel that tabletop is kind of moving towards, because again, Hasbro fucking up with D&D 5e, and honestly, when you look at D&D 5e as a game, it's kind of inexcusable how bad it's been, how much it just doesn't work in a lot of ways or bring anything that players want. Like, honestly, I try to advocate the best I can for like, hey, D&D is a great game that's very easy, simple. It's a good beginner gateway game. But man, we've been playing Celeste a lot lately, and I was rehashing old D&D rules and everything, and it's like, if this was Pathfinder, this would just be objectively better.
Oh yeah,
in almost every way.
True. It's like, I will say though, Solasta at the very least, I feel like is stronger than Baldur's Gate 3, to be honest.
Which is sad.
Yeah, because like, at least in Solasta, can't you get to like level 20 or something?
No, you get to level 12 is the max.
Okay. Well, it's like, it feels like they add enough that it's like, I feel like my level ups do something. I feel that way less in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Like, it's something you learn that like 5e feels really restrictive when you compare it to other stuff.
When you you do Pathfinder and it ruins you. You cannot go back.
Wrath of the Righteous, I think, is just, it's a better system, but I really love Solasta. I think it's super fun. And I love Wrath of the Righteous because it's like there's so much you can do. But I do wish that like I wish like the Owlcat games would make a 2e Pathfinder 2e game. I want to
I
see the
wish they would
free
make.
action system.
I wish they would make a game where you could play with other players.
That too. I would love if I could
Please.
have someone play Rogue Trader with me.
God, because man, there's so many times I'm like, what would make Wrath of the Righteous better? Playing with my friends.
Yeah.
We tried once. It's like okay, but it's like pass the controller around. It's really restrictive.
It's really slow. And also, you have to be in person. The only way you could do it is there's Parsec, which lets you split screen that, and then it's just all right. Everyone, hands off your keyboards. It's my turn now.
Yeah.
But also, like, the turn-based thing in Wrath of the Righteous is so slow. It's like I played it in real time for most of the battles, unless I really had to sit down and plan, because like it's so long. I'm looking at you, Tavern Defense Mission. Jesus.
Yeah.
It took so long when I was playing just turn-based.
So, it's like I do feel genuinely like the tabletop space is kind of in that era of, all right, the big companies fucking up, so now let's all those smaller companies, push forward. And Paizo is such a good front runner for that because it's genuinely a good company. And to be fair, it's had to be, because that's how you compete with D&D. Is just be such a good game that your player base is like, this is just objectively the better game.
Yeah.
I think with more visibility on YouTube, and I think with more visual representation in other ways, I think people can get more into tabletop. Honestly, if you can have a really good presentation for your games, it hypes people way up more for the system that you're playing. The biggest tragedy was watching Arcadium fuck up his kind of hold on the D&D space.
Yeah.
Because he was competitive with Critical Role. And watching his stuff was kind of hype, honestly. The character art was good. It was getting personalities that you kind of want to see what their style was into the tabletop space. It was amazing. And power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely kind of situation. And ever since, content creators in the tabletop space have dropped off dramatically, which is tragic. A lot of people still want to do it, but a lot of people were kind of burned by it, and it was a big drop of the ball, because it was the next step down from Critical Role. Critical Role is like actors, popular, single crew with some guests on here and there, and Arcadium stuff was popular streamers or content creators coming on and doing their characters, which was a lot of fun.
That's
and
all I heard about him.
If it had held, I think tabletop would be in a much better space right now, but it didn't. And the worst part is, it fell apart right at its peak when it was the most, like when you had like Donkey and Disguised Toast and Lily Pichu and everyone like in games. And dude had to drop the ball. It sucks ass. I'm so frustrated by that.
Yeah.
So I do hope that content creators are able to bring back the space in some regard or form. I think Dingo Doodles, I think Joe Cat, I think hopefully Rock Grind with Zoran the Bear starts growing more, because that Rock Grind's actually pretty good.
I've heard that.
And I hope we can bring more people into the space. I think if content creators can really hop on the tabletop and make it fun and make it easy and accessible, good character art. Honestly, what sells tabletop? Good player art.
Yeah.
You just gotta invest in good, sick player art for your scenes. Like, one of the things that Arcadum also had was at the end of his streams, they go over all the art that was made during the stream. And there was some really good, sick art for some of the character scenes. And that is hype. And the people saw that and are like, I want that to be me. You know? And that's what I would like to do at some point in the future, is to have that kind of variety, groups of get people getting together, playing different games, doing things, having art. Visual representation, I think, is the key thing that tabletop is missing currently. I think if tabletop does more stuff that's visually appealing, more visual peripherals for an audience, I think it'll be better.
Yeah, I think so too.
But we're still like very early in the age of like the hike in tabletop, because tabletop has gone from being very niche, it's now somewhat mainstream a little bit, but it has very poor viewing quality, and it's very hard to interact with as a viewer in this space. And I think the more peripherals come out, the more programs that come out that make tabletop better, more easy to access, and the more content creators are creating content for it, I do think tabletop will start growing. And with more people who have seen the light outside of D&D 5e, I think that there will be more people looking into this space. Because I mean, like, imagine Lancer content, but you had more Lancer art to like augment it.
Yeah, because like
it'd be so good.
The closest we have is that one mini site we used, which I absolutely adore.
ComCom?
No, the other one for art. Retrograde minis that we use.
Retrograde minis.
I love retrograde minis. They're fucking great, and imagine that for more systems.
Yeah, I mean, they have fantasy as well.
It's great. I just like couldn't make some of my characters. They have no tiefling options, which is sad. Or no bard options. That's more. They didn't have any bard stuff. It was all just like wizard, ranger, fighter. It's like nothing else.
Yeah. I think the more that kind of peripheral stuff gets added on, I think tabletop will grow. And you know what? I do think the next hike in like variety tabletop will come with D&D 1, actually. I feel like there's a few scenarios. D&D 1 comes out and people need to transfer from D&D 5e to D&D 1, make new characters with the new rules or whatever. And that will create a bunch of people who are like, okay, yeah, 1 D&D, whatever. It's going to flop, I guarantee. But anyway, they're going to be like, okay, let's try another game first, you know? Or they'll see like, because the idea behind 1 D&D is that it's either going to be so close to 5e that there's no noticeable difference besides maybe restarting of monsters, or it's just going to be a new edition without the edition attached on, and people are going to have to make a shift. Or it's going to be literally nothing because they can't actually put together a game that is somehow D&D 5e and not at the same time. And I feel like a bunch of people are going to start looking at other tabletop games because it's going to be very lukewarm. It's going to be like, I guess this is just the same as what we were doing anyway. Or they're just going to keep playing 5th edition and eventually get tired of it, you know.
I know it was said earlier, like Lympholium said it a bit earlier, but like honestly, if 1 D&D was just 5e with a better release plan, and like we're gonna release more content books, and also we have a really good digital VTT, fucking money maker, absolute bank. Because that's like the whole thing of like, hey, you're now just kind of playing your own video game, like with really easy tools to do all this. Like, sick. That trailer, like the only part of that trailer that I was like actually interested in was like their D&D Beyond VTT. It was the only part that would seem cool.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's because everything was like, hey, we're coming out with a new game, but you don't have to change too much to play our new game. But it is a new game, saying literally nothing the whole time.
yeah, it's 3 minutes of non-speak, and then you see a really cool product. You're like, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's, I think, what the big thing is. If the first company to come out with a really good virtual tabletop that is so easy to use and also very, like, visually appealing, I think will be the crown of tabletop. I think no matter what company does it, I think it will happen, because that's just what everyone wants.
The one I'm most interested in is I keep seeing videos of it is one called One More Multiverse, where it feels like that's what they're trying to do. It's very like pixel art, create your own thing, like make your own taverns with like dialogue inside of it if you want. It seems like really cool, and it's more of the thing I talk about a lot, where it's be a fun shift to be like, yeah, we're playing 5e or something, we're playing D&D, but it's all run through a DM ran video game. Which I think there's some DMs out there who really like the idea of having tools to create their own like CRPG campaign that their friends play through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just wish I could go into a program and click like generate map button a few times until I get a dungeon that looks kind of like interesting, and then run through it, have an easy access compendium to drag monsters onto the screen. Maybe the monsters have like a standing like animation or something. Like if they could just make putting something together very quick and easy, being a GM would be much better in general. Less, I would also say less like demanding and intimidating. And also just make the game more visually appealing, because honestly, I was always like watching Arcadum streams. He had people make maps for him, and they're huge maps, and the characters could walk around and role play in scene using their tokens and everything. There was a lot of really cool stuff, and I was always very jealous of that, you know, because like I don't have the time to work on full maps in that regard. It just be too much effort, and I'm just not the kind of person who would do that. An AIDM could also be interesting, depending. I think it's not the same experience. I think it would be a variation of tabletop. But I think a variation of tabletop that, for the very least, for the groups that don't have a GM, could work really well. You know. I think having an actual GM is still the best way to do it, no matter what.
Yeah, it's still like, the fun of tabletop a lot of the times is the friendship aspect of it, that you're just hanging out, having a good time with like people you like. So the idea of like having that disconnect might make it less interesting. But also, I have heard of Tailspire. The only thing that makes me a bit more like meh about it is, I guess, is a personal thing. I don't like VTT stuff that tries to emulate that you're on like a table. I want a like virtual representation of what's going on, rather than like, oh yeah, it's a digital version of models hopping around. No, I like the idea of like, I click this thing and my character walks to it.
Yeah,
like, the closer we can get to a literal Mario Maker CRPG game, because that's my dream. I don't even like want to make a lot of stuff for that. I just think that absolutely sick as a tool, and like seeing people just port over games that they're playing to like online, so that it's like people who say because one thing I've been noticing on Foundry, I have some bad ADHD issues. It's really hard for me to sit down, look at a map, and like pay attention, know what's going on. With a lot of just things to pull my attention in by making it a video game style, it makes me a lot more focused in the moment, which is what I'm learning about Foundry. There's a lot of tools in it for Lancer that I'm like, I can track what's going on a lot easier. I can immediately play my turn. A lot of things are kept track of for me. So I really like the tool for that. I think it accommodates for issues I have that I have to just work for otherwise. Which is why I think One More Multiverse is such an interesting project. That, and also they actually have 3 official packs. Like Blades in the Dark has a official crossover thing with them for a bunch of pre-made assets in like maps and levels and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think it's a cooler product when it's trying to trick you that the thing is going on your screen rather than you're on a virtual table.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, but some people are very sentimental about that kind of stuff, though. Yeah. So, like, I get that, but I am also in the camp of make my experience more interactive, make my experience more, like, stimulating. In the future, if I ever get the funds to do so, I want to have scenes, like, there's the battle map and when we're playing the battle part of the game, and then when we're doing the narrative, I have buttons to swap from scene to scene of images of different areas, and then when the characters talk, they come up on screen and their characters are emoting and stuff like that while the players are talking, like, in character, to really create the immersion. Because what I want is immersion. What I want is something that's very deeply, like, you get sucked into it, and it's almost like you're watching an animation of your campaign, which I think is sick. You know, it's not immersive for me to have my immersion be I'm playing a tabletop game. I want the immersion to be I'm in the narrative, I'm in the story, I'm in the game, you know. It's almost backwards having an experience that's just like, hey, but what if you had plastic figures but in digital form? It's like if you're actually there, actually in someone's house, they have a built out map, that's very cool and immersive, and I've seen that experience before. It doesn't translate well over digitally. It just seems more silly that way. People are trying to recapture that feeling of being at their friend's house with these massive maps that are built, you know.
And like it's cool. Like I like having that in a physical space, but if I'm in a virtual space, like why limit ourselves to reality when we have these computers that can simulate all this other stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And that's hell yeah, it means we can expect a custom Solasta adventure in our near future, right?
Maybe. I know Colton has been thinking about making some, so
I've thought about just making a weird goofy one, like a little like one shot that's just strange, and like see what I can do in the actual program.
But the exciting part is tabletop is getting more and more people interested, invested in it. The technologies are progressively getting better and better. And I do think the current level of what we have for tabletop in general is just the beginning. And it's so basic level that with the technology we already currently have, we have the ability to make even better digital peripherals for tabletop. You know, like with the many games and systems out there where I've seen like map creators and how characters can be like represented, heck, even character model building. How many MMOs have you all seen with just the most absurd character builders where you could make any character you can imagine in it? I've seen tons of those, actually. Tabletop is just a few steps behind. Sorry, go ahead.
They're super fun when like they just let you go wild rather than restrict you to like a weird specific thing. The more freedom you give the people, the more interesting the product you have.
So, like, the future's looking really good for tabletop, I think, right now. I think this whole OGL debacle has opened the space up. It opened Pandora's box. and it's shown a lot of the casual groups of tabletop players that there's stuff outside of D&D, and it's not that bad once you actually start playing it. You know, all it is that kick in the pants that's needed to, like, out of spite or whatever, check out another game even once.
True.
And then it's like, oh, wow, this is it. Because, like, right, I don't think of myself as someone who's so strange that the things I like are so unlikely for other people, or even like a decent number of other people to like. And tabletop has shown that as it's become more popular. Now we have millions of people interested in tabletop content. We have hundreds of thousands of people actively participating in tabletop content. There's countries in this world that are just getting tabletop content for the first time. You know? So, yeah. Like, it's not as niche as people think it is. It just was something that was not very new player friendly, and it wasn't something that was so visually appealing before. Because back in the day, you had the book and you had a sheet of paper, and that was the game. Maybe a plastic figurine, maybe, and only as a rough, like, estimate of your character, unless you had someone who was, like, really into it, who could actually, like, craft you your own character, which was super rare, you know. Now it's like there's digital art things you can make that can represent your character, which is really, really cool. There's people making art all the time online that you can face claim for your home games. There's so many different games out there. There's so many varieties of content you can consume on tabletop. It's only going to get better. And with this OGL business of people seeing there's something outside of it, and heck, even Pathfinder 2E is starting to get a influx, I guess, of new players. I do think that the space is opening up at least a little bit. I'm not necessarily as happy that everyone went from D&D to Pathfinder, because Pathfinder is just better D&D. And I would prefer more people to go out, like, into the open space to find the many cool games out there. But it's a step in the right direction.
100%.
And here at Bad Luck Gamer, you know, we're pushing to open up the space to make more games more accessible for people. When I get enough income, I will start investing in adding digital peripherals to make games more interesting. Like, my life goal at this point is to make tabletop as inviting and interesting as video games. To make it so that people can get in, make a character. And I mean, like, right, we picked Celesta recently. We started playing Celesta. Once you knew generally the kind of class you wanted to play, how long did it take you to make your character, Alex?
Super quick.
It was so
maybe
fast.
A minute or so.
When you have something that you can just open up and it tells you what you have access to, and you can just click a few buttons and make your character, that's, I think, when tabletop gets even better. Right now, there's a lot of tabletops out there that character creation is an hour to 2 hour process. Yeah. That's pretty intense. And it's something that it's like, okay, we make our characters today and we play another time. It makes it likely that you're not likely to play. And there are, I will mention, a lot of one-page tabletop games out there where you have a few stats and you can get right into the roleplay really fast. I don't think that delivers the in-depth experience that people can have with tabletop, but at the very least, it makes it very quick and easy. Like, hey, we're out drinking with our friends today. Why not do a little bit of tabletop for fun? Let's just pull up this game and go from there, you know? And with the advent of dungeon randomizers, because, like, procedural generated content is very common nowadays in video games, and we can make procedural generated stuff for tabletop even better. If I, like I said, if I just had a button to click, it goes make dungeon, I could do so much more with my games, because I have to spend a lot of time just looking for a decent looking dungeon map to plop on the table. And when it's for something like Lancer, it's even harder.
Yeah, have fun finding a spaceship interior.
Well, exterior, if you're doing a fight on, like, interior, there actually is a fair amount. But it's all, person sized, not 20-foot tall mech sized.
Yeah.
So, it's, there's so much more we can do, and I guess we're now hitting the end of the stream here. So as we leave off, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but at the very least, this time I think there's a Lantern map generator on itch. There is, but it's for a very particular style, like art style, and not one that I find very interesting to look at personally. Just not my aesthetic. This time next week, at the very least, I'm sure we'll get there by the beginning of next week. The channel will be at 2K subs. And my goal is to, by June or into July, hit 3K and end this year at 5K subs. That's a massive amount of growth considering it took 10 months to get 1K last year. We're hitting 2K at about 7 months. And I hope to hit 3K in about 5 months. And I do think we can do that. Channel's growing really, really fast. There's a lot of stuff I want to do, but I am curious as to is a Q&A something anyone's interested in? Maybe there's not enough people on the channel who's interested in a Q&A style video. I do want to do something because I didn't really do something for 1K at all, and I've been just so busy with the content that I'm doing that it seems hard for me to really develop hey, let's dedicate time to celebrating 2K, because when I make a video, it'll get 200 views.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if I want to do something for Table Talk, where at the very least, if 5 people show up, that's about normal, 5 to 10 people, give or take it. We've been sitting predominantly at 6, 7 people this stream. So if there's anything like that, I don't know. Let me know in the Discord. Maybe we'll do we'll pull up a stream and we'll do some Jackbox. Just a chill, fun community game night for everyone, and people can participate in, or I don't know, play a game. Maybe we'll do a Scholastic game with some player run character or chat run characters, or there's a lot of things I think that could be fun, but I just want to know what people want to watch.
Yeah,
because I think no matter what I do, it will be fun for me, but I want to celebrate the community that we formed, because me getting 2K subs is just as much everyone's effort. There's people I see in our Discord pushing the content in other places, which is really cool. There's people who are chatting us up in Twitter. There's all kinds of stuff, so that we wouldn't be anywhere where we are today without the community. And I want to give back the best I can. I just don't know how. So any ideas on that, anything you guys would like, especially those who have been very constantly coming to our streams, let me know, and also we might be celebrating Alex's 1K for his channel as well, depending.
Soon, yeah. We'll see how this latest one contributes to that, because I've gotten the most sub growth in a day than I've gotten in a while. Because yeah, this latest video I put out, check it out if you are interested in learning about a bunch of space Vikings. Because and honestly, I'm very proud of this video. I think it's really good. I think it's really funny too. It's certainly one of my more favorite videos I've made in the past few weeks. So yeah, go give that a watch and a comment if you want.
Yeah, and it's a great time for both of our channels. Lots of growth coming, and as this year goes on, we're gonna see more people are gonna be in the Discord. We've been getting tons of people in the Discord all of the time now. Uh, people are looking to make games now, which is really cool. I do want the Discord to be a place where people can come talk tabletop and find games that they can participate in, because that's one of the hardest things in tabletop to do. And we'll see where we go. If we hit 5K by the end of this year, we'll hit 10K in the next year. Easy. I guarantee. 100%. And who knows how much further we'll get after that. So the channel is going to be growing a lot. Whatever I get from the channel is just going to be reinvested into it. And I'm going to be making better content and making more fun tabletop stuff for everyone. So, you know, I hope you're all ready for the ride. It's going to be a really good time in the coming months and years. And thank you all for everything you put into the channel. But with that, I guess we're going to go ahead and say goodnight.
Yeah. Good night, y'all.
Good night.